Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now, apparently according to Eddie Hearn, this is what he said in a recent interview, that Dubois versus Joyce, the winner could go on to face Alexander Usyk in their next fight. Now, that is interesting because obviously Usyk is not WBO champion at the moment, Anthony Joshua is, but there is the great possibility that Anthony Joshua has to vacate that title if he wants to fight Tyson Fury next. So in the case that that happens, that means that that WBO belt will be vacant and therefore will be fought out between the mandatory challenger and number 2, who at the moment is Daniel Dubois. But if Joe Joyce wins, then he potentially leapfrogs Daniel Dubois to that second place spot. So that means it would be Usyk versus Joyce, or Usyk versus Dubois for the vacant WBO world title, which means the stakes have been raised on this fight to being essentially a world title eliminator. I know it's not, but you have to consider that that's in there when these two fight out, which means that there could be more glory, more silverware on the other side of this fight. Now obviously both of them are extremely motivated to win anyway. It's not just because they could potentially get a world title opportunity. That is not the reason why they are trying to win this fight, because that is just hearsay. That might not happen. The motivation to win this fight is for the British title, the European title, to continue towards a potential world title opportunity, whether it comes next or not. And it is interesting that Eddie Hearn said that as opposed to saying they could get an opportunity at, say, Anthony Joshua, considering their standing within the WBO. So maybe there is some way in which they are looking to vacate that belt and go and fight Tyson Fury. It is interesting that he said that as opposed to saying Anthony Joshua is currently champion and he holds that WBO belt, which is the belt of course which Daniel Dubois holds the highest ranking within. So that does mean that they are looking to make that Tyson Fury fight with Anthony Joshua, possibly at all costs. If they have to vacate a belt, then maybe that is what they will do, which again gives extra incentive for the winner of this fight, for someone to prevail. Now in this particular fight, it is going to be youth versus experience in some weird way, even though they are both still kind of novices in the heavyweight division, but an age gap does separate them. I'm not going to play into that too much. I don't think the age gap is going to play a big factor in this fight, purely because Joe Joyce hasn't been through the trenches in the sense that he's had hard fights, he's had hard experiences that would have put too many miles on the clock. It's those hard fights, and often it's fighters lower down the weight classes who have to make weight. That does take a lot out of them. So ultimately I don't think that will be affecting this fight too much, considering their age. Now, when you look at the experience level, you have to think that Joe Joyce has a wealth of experience compared to Daniel Dubois. Amateur and kind of pro considering the wins that he's had. Bryant Jennings remains to Hearn, yeah. So he has been in there with more quality operators than Daniel Dubois to date, and it will be interesting to see how Daniel Dubois deals with being in there with someone like Joe Joyce, who will pressure him, who will try and take his best punches and land his own, because Joe Joyce is known for being durable, but you cannot be durable and take punches after punches in there with someone like Daniel Dubois. Even the most durable fighter cannot do that, because even if they can last the full 12 rounds, they'll lose on points because they've been peppered with so many punches, especially considering Daniel Dubois is faster than Joe Joyce. So if he goes in there like for like, trying to take punches to land punches, then in that case, Daniel Dubois is probably going to win out, whether it's by knockout or whether it is by points. Just because, yes, Joe Joyce does have good timing, good positioning, and he does pick his punches well, but he's just not fast enough to compete with someone like Daniel Dubois if they sit in the pocket. So what he does need to do is use his boxing brain, use his experience. He has that he can put to good use in this fight. He has proven also that he can be a little bit more elusive than at times he has made out. Because let's remember, he does have a lot of other skills as well, such as capoeira and stuff like that, which is like a dance fight type of thing. He does that, and he said that in the past he has used that in his training camps for boxing matches, which I mean, if you got it there, then use it. Everything can be a tool when he's going in there in a boxing match, especially considering all of the experience and knowledge that he has accumulated over the years. Because I remember a fight that Joe Joyce was in with Ustinov, and in that fight he did resort back to his usual ways, but to start with, he was being elusive, he was moving well, and using his footwork, positioning, all of the things that he is definitely capable of doing. he was utilizing that in the early rounds, but again, he did resort back to type eventually. I mean, in there with Ustinov, that's okay. In there with Daniel Dubois, that's not okay. You cannot revert to type in there with someone like him, unless you have to adapt. That is when Joyce must show he is able to do that at this kind of level, in there with an opponent such as Daniel Dubois. So if that is where the fight takes him, then that is where he must go. But if he has a game plan and it starts to work, then that is what he must do for the duration of the fight, for however long it lasts. And I do think at times that Joyce does kind of get too much stick for being a slow fighter. If he was really that slow, then he wouldn't win fights on points. I mean, obviously timing and everything comes into it too, but if he was that slow, he wouldn't land punches. It's as simple as that. He is still able to land punches. I think that he's one of those fighters who, you watch him, he does look slow, and you think that, okay, he's kind of one-dimensional, he would be easy to outbox, essentially, or even just outfight by standing in the pocket, then getting off to the side, because the other opponent, you would think, is faster than Joyce. But I would imagine being in there is a completely different kettle of fish, as opposed to watching him, because as I said, he always seems to find a way. He's 11-0, 10 knockouts, undefeated in the pro game, so something is working with Joyce. And you can be the fastest fighter in the world, you can be extremely fast, extremely explosive, but timing will always beat speed, and that is what Joyce has in abundance. He's very good with his timing, very good with his positioning as well. Not the best head movement, but he has good lateral movement, which does kind of counteract that in some way. Again, he does get hit too much, but you cannot believe that he's going to go in there and allow Daniel Dubois to have it all his own way, to land punches when he wants to. If he does, then it could be a very difficult night for Joyce. I don't see him doing that. I see him making Daniel Dubois earn every single punch that he lands. If he does that, then he has a better chance going late in this fight, because you would have to believe that early on it's Daniel Dubois, late on it's Joyce. That seems to be the way this fight has been dubbed. I'm not necessarily going to buy into that too much. I think that this fight could end at any moment, because we've never really seen Daniel Dubois in there taking punches from someone like Joyce, who does punch hard, not necessarily explosively, but does punch hard nonetheless. So I believe that this will be a very tough test for Daniel Dubois to prove he is the kind of fighter we believe that he is, to prove that he can take a punch, to prove that he can still land punches in there with someone like Joyce, who will be more elusive than usual, to see if he can put a dent in the juggernaut. That is going to be very interesting. It's also going to be interesting to see how Joyce deals with a big explosive power puncher who's an incredible boxer as well, all merged into one. So they both have a very tough challenge in there, and perhaps this is the question that both fighters need to answer before they can go to world level, because there are question marks about both of them. Maybe in this fight, after that we will see the kind of credentials they have going towards those world title opportunities. So guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Eddie Hearn has explained the winner of this fight could potentially go on to face Alexander Usyk. Does that mean they are looking to vacate that WBO world title? Whatever happens, whether Anthony Joshua does go and fight Fury and therefore must vacate that title, this fight is a mega fight for both of them. Mega stakes on the line. Guys, anyway, drop your thoughts on this in the comments below, leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.